everybody. Thank you for checking out Tactical Scrubs. I have a good friend and colleague with me today, Mr. Doug Melia. And I found out about Doug, who is a use of force specialist through his restraint company that he owns. He owns what I believe to be probably the best version for restraint out there, the most modern version. And he's doing it in all types of places. So I was really excited when he agreed to come on the podcast and tell us about what he's doing and how we can get in touch with him. And he is actually coming across the pond. So Doug is one of our wonderful UK partners, and he's actually coming across the pond shortly here, right? January, you're headed here?
January the 17th, I'm in Fort Myer working with the corrections, and then I'm off up to Tulsa, and I'm told it's not Tulsa, it's Bartlesville. So I'm working with Grand Central Mental Health, and a guy called Jim Waring, he usually comes out here, but I'm going out there. So yeah, excited to be putting some roots down.
Yeah, I'm excited for you to come up. I think we're going to try and drive up there to meet you, either one of the places. I think either we're going to go,
Okay.
Florida or another location, but I think probably that mental health area would be the best area for us to pop in and just say hello. And I'm excited to see your product in action and the training. So tell us a little bit about you, Doug, and about how you got into this space and how you even got to the point where you felt like you needed to invent something like these new restraints.
So I suppose it starts when I started doing martial arts quite young in my childhood. That was where the physical skills came from. And then I left school and they were running a GCSE PE program. So you could choose to do sports instead of sporting activities. Now, I wasn't particularly into football or basketball or hockey. So I submitted some martial arts techniques and I got an A. So my instructor said, well, maybe we're onto something here. Maybe we could start teaching martial arts as an option. So in the daytime, my instructors, they would do self-defense courses for nurses. They would do advice for teachers. They'd do personal safety workshops. And we started teaching karate and judo. So it gave children a different option, but it also got kids back into the classroom who were just disaffected by the curriculum. Kids that didn't particularly like the teachers, didn't like the classrooms. It got them to a different space down the road in a sports centre or a church hall. We were young, I was younger then, we were young, dynamic instructors that people sort of looked up to. And there was a couple of ex-military guys on the team as well. And
cool.
we had a great product for a few years where we got people GCSEs who might not have got any high school qualifications at all. And then the demographic changed because the teachers worked out that if there were kids in their classrooms that were problematic or they didn't want to be there, they could just push them to us down the road. So we had a real different experience then of gangs, edged weapons. There was some lessons where fireworks were set off, kids brought dogs in. And then there was 4 days after my 19th birthday, I was in front of a safeguarding panel because the kids had been passing a breath freshener around. And I thought, just pick your battles. You've got 30 minutes till break time. Address the behavior at break time. And the breath freshener was filled with vodka. So I had to explain why I had 5 drunk 15-year-olds on my class.
Oh my God. Gosh, I am a mom of 4 boys, and I could not imagine ever. I couldn't. That's so cool. But you know what? I feel like that gave you the experience of seeing somebody who's not emotionally mature enough have these large emotions that they're trying to deal with, and how you could help manipulate their own insecurities to help you. I think that gave you a great background in at least managing, pediatric behavioral health and mental health for sure.
Yeah, it was a baptism of fire, to be honest, because although I'd done martial arts techniques since being a child, I'd never had to physically hold or control someone outside of that sporting arena, if you like. And we were now put in a position where everything told us, don't put your hands on the children, think about safeguarding, keep yourself safe and don't avoid allegations. And then you've got 2 children trying to fight each other or children trying to attack us. So I heard real mixed messages. Sometimes we were told, don't get involved. And then other times they'd say, no, you must do something, you must put your hands on them. But we had no training. So that was that. I then started working the doors. Now, in the UK, we passed the Private Security Act, which was a bit of legislation which brought in guidelines to make nighttime security safer. Now, when I used to work the doors, and we used to call them bouncers back then, it was just a case of get a passport photo, go to the local council office, and you got a pass, and you could then work the doors. I think maybe
Okay.
we got some advice on fire drills, and we maybe did a first aid course, but there was no element of personal safety. Now, what that act did is it actually caused 10,000 people to lose their jobs overnight. And that was simply because they introduced a criminality check to see if people had a bad past. So
Oh,
it
wow.
told you something about the state of the industry. There were definitely people working in the nighttime economy who were criminals and who perhaps had other business interests. So that's I got involved then because they said they were going to bring in and mandate physical skills, conflict management, conflict resolution. It took maybe 10, 15 years for that to happen. I then went on to work as a bodyguard, which was a fascinating job, which took me all over the world. And I fell by accident into high court enforcement, so removing protesters. And that's where we found that although we were taught to use metal handcuffs, you couldn't use them on protesters because they'd either use them as a weapon to attack
Mhm.
us, or they'd use them to hurt themselves. They'd just manipulate the
Yeah,
wrists to damage
that's
the
that's
wrists.
the thing that we see with psych patients, and that's what really
Yeah,
attracted me to your restraints, because in my mind I'm thinking, you know, if our corrections departments and our police that are, responding to 70% of police calls are psych related, if they have your restraints on board to go ahead and put them on when they're in the field and they can do those things, and then they come to us and we're already trained with that restraint technique, it's
yeah.
just so much better. And you have one of them here, right? With you, you have one of the soft restraints.
I do, yeah. So some people might refer to this sticky stuff as Velcro. Now that wouldn't be accurate because Velcro is a company name. So it's actually referred to as hook and loop, but to most people that they'll refer to it as Velcro. It's got made of Cordura, so it's military grade Cordura, so it pretty much doesn't rip. And then you've got a reinforced nylon buckle, so it's a very hard plastic that's got a high melting temperature. And that's it really. And the idea is it fits around someone's wrist and then it's joined. And then the only locking mechanism is an extra piece of hook and loop which sits across the top. So one of the first things that people say when they see me put them on or I put them into them is they say, okay, well, that works and it's strong enough, but I'd just get my way out of it. I'd just bite my way out of it. Now, there's no locking mechanisms on the cuff purposefully so that people aren't left unattended. We've already got metal cuffs and we've got bed restraints and things like that, which fasten people and fix people. But when you look at injuries and you look at deaths, a lot of positional asphyxia deaths occur because the patients put themselves in a position where they can't breathe or they've been left unattended and they've fallen on the face. So the idea of the cuff is it's a manual handling aid. So somebody's got to be under control first, and
Right.
then they're either transitioned into it from the metal cuffs or they're transitioned into it from holds. Or in ICUs, it's an alternative when you're bringing someone down from sedation to having nurses hang on to limbs, start reducing the sedation and just hope for the best because some people they're going to be combative, especially
Yeah.
if perhaps they were ended up in the ICU because they were in the process of committing a crime, or they've taken an overdose, or they've gone through the windscreen of a car, driving under the influence. The first thought when they wake up isn't going to be, "What are my injuries?" It's going to be, "Assault this nurse, pull the tubes and lines out, and run." So it's saving lives and it's helping staff to be able to maintain control.
And I like the idea that it's not supposed to be a plug and play. Here, put this on and
Yeah,
walk away. Because anytime that
exactly.
we're restraining somebody and we have to restrain them, I think that from a healthcare perspective, I mean, I love talking to you, Doug, because I don't even have to explain the scenarios because you know them all because you've been in the industry so long and you're doing so well over there. And that's one of the things that when I was looking at surrounding myself with experts, especially in regards to use of force, I was like, Doug knows what's up. Like, I don't have to spend all this time telling him, well, this is where I'd like to use this technique and this is how I'd like to use it. You just know from being there. And I think these types of restraints are practical when we're handing over care. And I feel like
Yeah,
that's like the most important time where we have a struggle, and it's particularly for me, that was where I found that was most difficult when I was a nursing supervisor. PD would bring people in and then just leave them, and then we'd have to like try
yeah,
and figure out how we were going to transition care and who was in charge of what now. And I think you, in addition to the restraints, because of your experience in the places that you've worked, you've developed like this training that goes along with it that's really, really impactful. So tell us a little bit about, not only do you just sell people restraints, but you give them the training to utilize them properly. And tell us a little bit about that training, because that's what really attracted us at Tactbook to having your collaboration, was the training piece.
yeah. So we don't sell any kit without training, and that's simply because anybody within that's part of the supply chain, if something goes wrong, they can be held liable. So from a legal standpoint, you can't be giving someone something without advice. If you pick up a McDonald's coffee cup, it says on it, contents may be hot. Now that's pretty much common sense. But if you pick up a bottle of bleach, it also says don't drink it. For the same reason, something like this shouldn't be just sold from Alibaba, Amazon, or online with people to buy it and go out and use it. And if they do, there's a level of liability. So we insist on trade. The other reason is from a profit point of view, we don't make much money on this because we have it made by reputable companies that we know where they source the equipment from, and we know who's making it. So we know it's not some child in a sweatshop in Vietnam. We can
Yeah,
follow
that was
right back.
that was
Yeah,
another one of the things that I was really concerned about when I started looking at products and where they're coming from. And, we have enough moral distress going on at the bedside,
yeah.
not knowing that, the products that we're buying or where they're coming from are coming from places like that is concerning, and I think that's really great that you guys have addressed it. And I think the training element is really neat. So say a hospital were say, okay, I love Doug's restraints. What does that process look like on your end? Because we know you're in the UK. And so that's something that we had talked about,
Yeah.
collaborating and our tactical reps being able to train. So say, things in healthcare are like wildfire here. You get one, they love it, the next place does it, the next place does it. So
Yeah.
I feel like with your training, how does that process work, when we buy the restraint? Like what does it look like next if I'm a nurse manager or somebody looking at a new option?
So in the UK, we tend to refer to them as PMVA, Prevention and Management of Violence and Aggression, or it might be your personal safety trainers within a police force. So we'd look at people who are already training, similar model to you talking about the CPR trainers. So you've got someone who's got some kind of teaching qualification, coaching qualifications. So they understand about learning styles, they understand about differentiating learning, implementing things where people might not have English as the first language, so people can deliver training. Second is they've got to have basic life support qualifications, so they understand how to manage an emergency, and they've also got to have physical skills experience. Now that could be a physical skills, a police training qualification, it could be a correctional training qualification, so that we know that somebody understands things like positional asphyxia and medical emergencies. They also know to train someone how to control someone, and then we teach them how to put it on. And when we teach them how to put it on, we talk about the 3 C's. So it's either compliance, control, or chemical. So chemical, the person's already sedated and you're going to put it on them. Control would be you're managing holds and you're saying, okay, these holds are they're not working or they're too restrictive. Let's transition into the soft restraint or from a mechanical restraint. And then the other one, which people don't realize, is compliance. You say to somebody, look, we don't want to put our hands all over you, but you're going to need to go in an MRI scanner, or you're going to need to go and have some kind of treatment allied to psychiatric care. If you don't want us to hold you, maybe you could put these on. We'll show you, you can handle them, and we'll show you how they go on. That would mean we can be arm's length away from you, and it'll be less intrusive for you. And a lot of patients will say, yeah, do you know what? I don't like the metal cuffs. I don't want to be strapped to a bed, but I'm okay with this. Especially if they know they can go out and have a cigarette, or they can perhaps go to the bathroom or do personal care on their own, which might be something they don't want to have males or females intrude on.
Yeah, I think that is a really great option for these restraints. And that's one of the reasons that I was attracted to you years ago, because I believe that what we're going to move towards is being able to communicate better as professionals so that we can clearly set expectations. I hate the word limits. People are like, give them limits. No, you can't give another human a limit. Like, they're a human and they
No.
have autonomy. Just because they're a patient doesn't mean they don't have patient rights, but we can help guide their decisions. And I feel like this is a great soft middle ground between, okay, this person, in my case, in the ICU, in the neuro ICUs and trauma ICUs, they may have cognitive issues where they truly don't remember that they're not capable of, they might be trached and they're like, I don't understand.
Yep.
So it's a much more compassionate sometimes route, and it's also a way that the nurses can help teach family members with these type of restraints. I think that there is definitely more innovation. I liked on your website, it says something about it's not a new thing. It's a reinvention of something.
Yeah.
It's not even just an increase in what we've got. It's completely new. The concept is completely new. And I think that when we do tact training, we start out by making sure that anybody on that CPR level can identify safe physical tactics and unsafe physical tactics, because
Yeah.
I have never once in a hospital had training on asphyxiation from holds. No one's ever
Oh,
taught me
wow.
that. Yeah, that's
Oh,
stuff that we had to learn and seek out on our own, and it's not standard training. And then you're expected by sometimes the security officer says, you call them and you're like, I need you to hold them down. They're thinking that we've already done this big assessment of the three C's
yeah.
and determined and now they come in. They don't know that we had no idea. We just know that we have to try and give them, a shot, or we have to try and get a pill down them, or whatever we're doing. So I think that this is a great opportunity when we do restraint training and we look at new restraints for the new year, that meet our workplace violence prevention committee requirements and regulatory requirements. I think this type of restraint should be what is recommended, not the traditional way that we're doing things, because restraints are very frowned upon here. We are told to use restraints at the last possible minute. If the patient has already hit you, then you can use your restraints. And I think that's totally the wrong way of thinking about
Yeah.
doing this. It has to be, how can we assist them in their compliance? Are they even capable of negotiating that with us? If they're not, then what is that next level of restraint? And you have all types of different styles of restraint. You have like a waist one, you have,
Yeah.
the arm ones, you've got a sling now. Tell us a little bit about the sling.
So all the products they're based on existing products that our clients and the people we work with have said we could just do it changing this way or changing that way. So they've evolved based on the need from clients, which I think is a really, really important thing, because sometimes your big companies, they can run away with ideas that of things they want to do, something that looks cool or something that they have a favor over. We've always just based it on client feedback. So the cuffs that attach to the side of the belt, they worked really well, but we found there was too much lateral movement. So we wanted something that gave the patient something that was quite comfortable, sat around the abdomen. You can also then join another set of cuffs to it to give them access to their right or left arm. So you could let them manage things like personal care. You can have them have the fingerprints taken. You can even have patients that have become mythical monsters because of things they've done. And
Oh, they're just like flat out. Hi. Sorry. I sometimes that has happened to me when I'm sliding patients over, like my morgue patients, and sometimes they're real heavy and I'm little. I'm like, oh God, don't drop them, but it's terrible. But I know how that feels. So I think it's a great invention. I think it's wonderful. And I love, there was just a really famous kind of American news story about some nurses in Washington state that are in this behavioral health unit in a Seattle, I believe it's a Seattle hospital. And they were just there's every incident that I read was completely preventable. I just kept thinking, Doug's restraints, they need Doug's restraints, they need Doug's training. And so I'm happy to be able to kind of be a voice for you here. So tell us a little bit about one of the things I love about your background is that you used to work on cruise ships. So tell us a little bit about that, because I think that cruise ships are like American healthcare facilities. You have the Aloha deck where everything's open and you can't control anybody coming in or leaving, and the atriums are all open, and the security guys are like, "You want me to secure that?" And then they're large like cruise ships and they can't turn and navigate very fast. So I think you're the perfect parallel. But tell me about how you got into that. Oh my. Yeah. I was gonna say, how is that set up on a ship? Like, now I'm thinking, it's like having a small community hospital or a large community hospital out in the middle of nowhere. You don't have police, you don't have access to anything. Well, because it lowers your sodium. Yeah, it lowers your sodium level and it causes psychosis. So a lot of our patients that have these behavioral issues have wacky sodium levels, and that's what causes you to be nuts. So like they're literally on a ship full of people have are full of substances. They can't go anywhere. They have limited security. Doug, this is why I talked to you. I was like, Doug knows what it's like to be on the Aloha deck trying to secure all these people. Like you're perfect for healthcare security. Wow. Wow. Yep. That's incredible. And I think that your skill set, when I was just this ICU nurse, right, who was like, I'm tired of being assaulted, so I'm going to go out and find some people that can help me. And that was the thing that appealed to me, was your vast experience, and then just your knowledge of different areas, and the ability for you to work well with people like Laura Smith, who have strong mental health backgrounds, and then people like Paul Sarnisi and David LaRose, and everybody kind of all together in this group. And I'm really excited for the new year, because we're going to start doing our group Zooms, and everybody can drop in and give their advice and expertise. And I think we're all just going to really grow from this experience, and be able to do some research in the space will be incredible. And I know that having your really innovative, forward thinking restraints that are from practical use, from what you've seen, and I think that that is what makes them ideal for the type of environment that we're in. Because people think of healthcare as, they think of nurses as the lady with the lamp that brings you a band-aid, and then they think of healthcare as everybody's sick and everybody's dying in these hospitals. But it's not, it's far from that. You've got really professional nurses that have one of the hardest degrees in the world. I think the Bachelor's of Science of Nursing was one of the Guinness World Book of Records, like, the hardest degree. So you've got brilliant folks who are trying to walk around at a cognitive level up here. They're have very high thinking. And then you've got patients that are in fight or flight mode, and visitors who probably hate hospitals and are terrified. And they're meeting in the middle somewhere to try and communicate. And I think that's where the language, where you don't know what language someone can speak, but you still have to be able to deliver important and key information to keep everyone safe. There's not much time there. There's a time crunch. And on a vacation, people are out ready to lounge and hang out. But in the ER, you have to do that much faster, because you might not have the time. And I think that's where taking tactics like you have, and your experience and your expertise, and combining them with the folks that are here in the kind of rapid pace of the emergency rooms and behavioral health wards or centers here, that combination is really effective. And it's new. It's not one person just coming up saying, I have an idea, let's all do this. It's all 15, 20 of us have some ideas. Let's put together something that everyone can share in, and everyone can learn from. So tell us a little bit about you coming here. I'm really excited. I think I'm going to try and drive up there. I would love to hear, like, what your goals are for the future of your restraint company and your training company here in the US. Like, if I was a magic genie and you said to me, Mel, this is what I want for Christmas. What does Doug Melia want for Christmas from the American market, other than to be in every place here? But I guess maybe more of a core question. And I ask everybody that's in Tact Book this question: what is your personal and professional goal in regards to your abilities that you have to get to bring the group? I think some of that here too. And I think here in the US, we're much more on the we'll strap everybody down as opposed to giving them the appropriate chemical restraints. And I think it's just because of a lack of knowledge. And that's one of the things on the side of Tact Book where we're working on doing that chemical algorithm and trying to think of something like ACLS to give them a baseline protocol to at least provide safe care for everyone involved. And I think that's where learning from the UK partners and that change of approach is really important. We should do a tour. We should do a tour. We should do a panel, like a panel tour. Like we should do like me, you, maybe Laura, because she's a psych expert. I'm not a psych expert. And then, maybe we could get some other people depending on what cities we were in. But we should do a tour where people can literally come, get some portion of the training, and then they can ask us questions. They can bring us their workplace violence policies. They can just have us for a couple hours and be able to help solve some of the problems and then get this really neat physical training. And I think it would be a really awesome opportunity for organizations to get ahead of things before they get behind. And what do you have to lose for a 2-hour presentation that you go to? And probably we could get a tech company to pay for some food or something. Like, it would be awesome. Mm. Wow. Full? Are they full? Are they like over full? The ones here, they have those here. They're like psych areas in the emergency room, and they're so full, and we can't get any beds because there's nowhere for them to go. They have telehealth psych where they wheel a computer in, and like some doctors on there trying to look at this patient who's covered up with a blanket and do an assessment on them. I'm like, what is that? Like, you're paying money for that? That's so ridiculous. And then I call and I'm like, hey, this is my assessment. They're like, well, you're just a nurse. You don't know what you're talking about. And if we had a standardized approach where we were documenting behaviors and we were documenting what was going on, you just fax that to the behavioral health person and you get the right stuff there in your hospital ordered via your pharmacy. Like, it's really not conceptually that hard. The effort that I think is what makes them reluctant to do anything. And I think that's what makes people like you and I, Doug, really innovative, in that we're like, okay, it is a strong thing to shoulder. Like, this is a lot of shit. This is a lot of material. This is a lot of heavy conceptual stuff. And that's why I think all of us coming together and sharing the weight of it is what makes this possible. Yeah, yeah. And I think, the IHSS has this large collection of people that are coming together, but I think that them being so large now of an organization makes it difficult for them to move swiftly. And I think that's one of the elements of us being kind of smaller and having one standard mission, right? Just get the training to the people that need it as soon as possible. Like, there is no other fluff and frill that we're trying to do. Like, that's literally all of our joint mission together. And so I think what you're doing is incredible. I think that you, first of all, you could go off and work on cruise ships and go to visit elephant sanctuaries. And here you are talking to little old Mel, okay, about this. So I think your commitment to wanting to make a difference is really impactful. And I think that was the purpose of my podcast, was to let people that are out there in the healthcare world know, nurses and doctors, especially ED physicians. Like, ED physicians, you have a contact, Doug Melia, reach out to us, get him in your hospital. I mean, I would say that for the amount of friction that it takes to get into a hospital, Doug and I have enough experience to ease that friction. Our team has enough experience to ease that friction completely, whether it's legal compliance, whether it's, SOP development and policy development. Like, don't let that be a barrier to you bringing something new into your organization. We will help you take care of that. We just need you guys to put us in front of the people to say yes. And that really isn't a hard sell when you look at the other things that are happening. I mean, the lawsuits and the OSHA lawyers are calling me left and right nowadays. Mel, would you like to be a witness on this case? Mel, would you like to do some expert content? And the more security footage I review and the more things I look at, I'm like, oh my gosh, like, there is a lack of use of force. And so for a nurse, I never really knew what use of force was. No one ever told me that. That's a term I learned from security. And I learned that there's a continuum and there's policies and procedures and stuff. So I think that for a security director who has no experience in use of force, or has very minimal experience or policing experience, which is totally different than working as a bouncer or on a cruise ship or as an executive protection professional. That's a totally different style of use of force. Um, it's and so it's like music. I tell people use of force is like music. There's jazz, there's like rock, there's like, country music. They're all different approaches, and they're different types of personalities that require those approaches. And so the more the more types of personalities that you can get in front of, like you being in the cruise ships with 30 different cultures and languages and alcohol and all those other elements, you understand. You like all the types of music, Doug. You're a music connoisseur. Maybe, or like some gangster rap, maybe like some good old like Tupac, Biggie. They'd be like slinging rocks. I don't know. I could see some of them. Yeah, I think Eric Clay. Eric Clay has a policing back. I don't know if Eric Clay has a military background or policing background or both, but I feel like he could go either way, hard rock or gangster rap. I feel like. You never know. But I think I'm really excited for you to come visit. We're excited to get together some more. I think we really should do a tour. I'm going to put a poll in the bottom of this podcast, and I want to see if people want to see Doug and Mel and Eric and all of us go on a fun tour around and present our techniques and do a panel interview and like what other things people would be interested in learning. And then we could pre-sell the textbook or give away that tax certification or some certs from your stuff for free. That would be super cool. Really, really cool. Yeah. That would be dope. Dope. To take a look because I you'll have to come to Texas and you'll be like John Wayne. You'll be Doug Melia, John Wayne. I can't wait. It's gonna be great. All right. Well, it's been a pleasure talking to you today. And I, as always, am appreciative of everything you're doing. Like I said, you could be out in an elephant sanctuary, but here you are helping us and trying to help us over here in America, Canada, and, South America. We have viewers from down there that may be interested in this. So, as always, I can translate it into Spanish for you and we'll get you where you want to go. So, I appreciate everything you're doing and I look forward to seeing you soon. And if anybody wants to get in touch with you, how do they get in contact with you, Doug? Yeah, we'll put a link in the show notes and everybody will know where to find you. And we will talk again soon. Bye.